It's a pleasure actually to be part of this event and to participate in it. This is really, to my mind, one of the most important things that actually the Institute stands for, and I hope at some point the country also realizes that, being involved in issues that are development oriented as well as which are important in terms of, the livelihoods of people is something that we should be deliberating on as well as spending, good chunks of time on and coming up with solutions for. From my side, I'll just say that, at the Institute, it's a pleasure to welcome all of you and for this discussion. This is a discussion which, we are happy to host. We look forward to an open discussion where, people's views are heard in earnest. These are not views necessarily associated with a person's position in life. We hope the discussion is open enough such that you speak with the idea of, progressing this debate on how exactly we would be able to live in a world which is more safe, which is more ethical in a sense, and also which improves the life prospects of people around us. This is a very interesting year. It's actually the 100th anniversary of the setting up of the ILO. The ILO was set up in 1919 at the Treaty of Versailles, and the ILO was set up keeping in mind workers' issues. And surprisingly, not much debate is going on today about a lot of worker issues that have been, on the table across India and parts of the developing and advanced world. It's also a good time to talk about this. People sometimes say, why would you want to talk about something like, say, safety or low wage conditions or hazards at work at a time when a sector is actually in a downturn? The sector is going through a bad patch. There is no denying that. There are many reasons attributed for it. Some of it is got to do with the fact that the NBFC system is in a mess. So credit to people who actually deal with the auto sector is really a problem. There has been decline in demand for the auto sector. Part of the reasons attributed is that the government is actually wanting to implement new norms like the BS6 norms, and maybe people are postponing their decisions. There are many reasons, for this. But what we generally find is that bad times are good times to think about long-term sustainable issues. There is no better time to, think about what can we do about things which will improve the sector as well as I said, improve livelihoods. My mind is, goes back about 5 or 6 years when one of the sectors which I know a little bit in detail about, which is the textile sector, had a problem in Bangladesh. In 2013, there was this crash of a building in Bangladesh called the Rana Plaza, in which there were 5 garment factories, and somewhere close to maybe 1,200 workers died. At that time, instead of pushing things under the carpet, the interesting response of the agencies who were up that supply chain was to actually take the bull by the horns. So the people who were subcontracting work there were the big firms, the Zaras, the Calvin Kleins, the H&Ms, all of them were involved. And they decided that, safety is a big issue. And so we should actually work with our contractors in Bangladesh to actually improve their working conditions. But in the meantime, obviously, since the building had collapsed, it was a time in which you were going to, have workers not having a job. So they made a commitment at a time when they were going through a downturn that we will take care of their wages till the time when the buildings come up again. And in the meantime, we will work on safety issues. So it was quite a remarkable sort of an effort. It's normally rare to see, big players looking up their supply chains and saying that, this is something that is important. because in the end it impacts them as well. Okay, so they realize that some of the backlash of that would also have negative implications for them. Okay. Now it's really a world in which supply chains are getting lean, and when supply chains get lean and people are really looking to not hold inventories, then they're actually pushing back on their contractors, the people in the supply chain who are supplying to them. And this is happening not just in garments. You look at electronics, you look at any industry, this has started to happen. In garments it was, you now have point of sale machines telling you exactly when the demand is happening. And so you then place the order, and so you're pushing back on your contractor. The contractor in turn pushes back on the worker and says, there's suddenly an increased order, so increase the overtime. Let safety go on the back foot because we need to maintain this order. Same thing's happening in electronics. It's not necessarily in labor intensive. You look at capital intensive industries where even operational efficiencies are there, like say in electronics. Similar sort of a story. If you look at electronics firms, suddenly they started to, what we in management schools call thinly differentiate. That means you wanted to offer a lot of choices to your customers. So think of, say, HP. HP has something like 15,000 different printer types. And it has, something like another 25,000 different ways in which you can actually configure a notebook or a laptop. So someone estimated that there are actually 8 million different types of laptops that you can actually generate, okay, depending on how people want to configure their laptops. Now, if you do something like that, you're obviously going to have a lot of pressure up the supply chain, okay, and that started to happen. So there was another famous incident that I'm reminded of, which is when Apple had and HP actually were subcontracting upstream to Foxconn in China. And Foxconn suddenly got these huge, demands to put together various types of equipment into a notebook. And so they increased overtime, gave up safety. Many workers actually, found it very tough to work in those conditions. Worker suicides increased. Okay. Foxconn did the wrong thing of actually first saying that let's sign contracts with the workers that they are not liable in case this happens. Okay. Instead of saying let's take on the safety issue first. Okay. When the backlash started, they then went back and said, okay, let's look at ways in which we can improve safety, we can improve the variability at which demand is actually taking place. And finally, Foxconn said the only way to actually manage this is to let others put the searchlight on us. Then we will be more careful. So they invited in the press, which was quite a strong decision to make, knowing that they will be very critical of them. But that criticism was something on which they worked on, and today it's supposed in Shenzhen district, that's supposed to be one of the most forward-looking production units that you can think of. Okay. So as the world is going in this direction, many firms are actually looking up their supply chains and saying it's time for us to take responsibility on what is going on at that level. We know the world is getting lean. We know products are getting differentiated. We know that actually inventory management has become very, very slim. And we know the pressures are therefore being pushed back. But it is our duty as firms to actually take this responsibility on ourselves. And maybe the first country which has decided to do this by passing a law is France, where in 2017 they actually passed a law saying that firms will take due diligence and will actually take responsibility for what happens in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in the supply chain. And so it's now important for firms to actually think back and see how they can integrate those supply chains in a way which is safe, where working conditions are good, and in which everyone feels proud that the end product that gets produced is something that is beneficial for the customers who are going to actually consume it, and customers will feel good about it. Okay. So let me with those few words sort of say that, the time has really come for us to say that the responsibility can't just be, at the production unit itself. The whole supply chain has to be thought of. This is a new way of thinking. It's not the way we were used to thinking earlier, but without this, it's going to be very difficult, going forward in the modern world for organizations to actually, be able to put their heads squarely above their shoulders and say that the product that they make available to their customers is something that customers would actually, if they dug deep, would actually be happy to finally have and to consume. Okay? So it's a pleasure, therefore, to see this work that has been going on. I look forward to the conversation that we are going to be having. I congratulate the Safe in India team for this excellent work. I would really like to pass on the baton and ask Sandeep to present what exactly they have done and then take it forward from there. Thank you very much.